Hello there, boys and girls, and welcome back to Mid-Table Crisis with me, Simon Cross.
And me, Tom Patrick. How are you doing out there?
Well, I'm not too bad, Tom. I'm not too bad. Obviously, you yourself, you all right?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's a fairly muggy morning here in Nuneaton, which means that it's quite warm, but also quite humid, and not that people are getting mugged left, right, and centre.
And not unlike the Brazilian rainforest, we've unfortunately now left behind that the World Cup is over, eh, Tom?
Yeah, unfortunately so. We say left behind. We didn't actually go ourselves. But,
Don't
we know some people who did, and ironically, they did get mugged. So that's interesting to know.
Oh dear. Anyway, well, listeners, as you all know by now, the World Cup has finished, and that post-World Cup malaise has well and truly set in over here at Mid-Table Crisis. We're going to finish up the roundup of the tournament we've been giving over the past couple of weeks, and we're also going to be looking a little bit forward to the future in terms of which big names will be gracing our shores soon that we've seen from the World Cup.
Yeah, and some of them won't even necessarily be big names. They're just names that we've seen on the rise throughout the World Cup, and we'll be analysing whether some of those are good buys or bad buys.
But first, we do have to get back to the tournament at hand, and while most of us would like, well, the tournament has finished by now, but we do have to comment first on one of the semi-finals in particular, and that's Germany's mauling of Brazil. I mean, what happened, Tom?
I think Brazil lost their two best players, one to suspension, one to injury, and they were showing up because throughout the tournament, Thiago Silva was shoring them up at the back, and Neymar was their only realistic attacking threat because Oscar hadn't had a good World Cup up to that point. Fred had barely done anything. Joe was
Joe.
very poor. Yeah, I mean, when Joe is, your third choice striker,
It's
you've got
not
to
a
really.
fantastic lineup, is it? No, you're right. Joe, not brilliant.
And what the strength was, their good midfield. But then, Willian was disappointing. Oscar wasn't great. There wasn't much creativity there. There was almost no midfield. It was give it to Neymar. Far too much reliance on Neymar and take him out of the team and he's gone. And defensively, David Luiz, he's the kind of player you want to play with in five-a-side, but in the World Cup semi-finals, he just got shown to be...
He's not a centre-back.
We've
said it many times.
Yeah, I mean, he'd be a very good player sitting in front of two centre-backs because of how adventurous he is. And, he got away with it with Thiago Silva alongside him. But I think even with Thiago Silva, I think they probably would have lost.
They were rocky.
Yeah, but Germany are the kind of ruthlessly efficient team that will expose weaknesses.
When I mentioned the Colombia game on the previous podcast and how that early goal helped Brazil because it looked like the team's under pressure and how they were scrambling the ball away, Germany just it just turned the pressure up to the point where they just cracked. It's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've got to say as well, Muller's goal, the first goal, that was ridiculous. I mean, from a corner to leave someone unmarked about 8 yards out, he side-footed it into the net from a corner. Absolutely ridiculous, horrendous marking. I don't understand how they got that far, to be honest, looking at that. And then from there, I think that knocked Brazil back a bit, and they never really recovered. It was a punch to stun, and then a combination over the next sort of 15 minutes of it was just knockout blow football.
It was hard. If it was a boxing match, it would have been stopped. It's just that simple.
It would have been stopped in the first half. I don't think Kadira would have got his one because you saw the goals going in and you genuinely didn't know when they were going to stop. Germany definitely pulled the foot off the accelerator after a while because they could have easily reached double figures. I mean, the simplicity of some of the goals, they were passing it around. They had little passing circles inside the 6-yard box and the 18-yard box, and then someone would finish it off. Kroos's goal was very simple. Well, one of them.
Yeah.
Um, and, closer, got 2 bites of the cherry inside the 18-yard box.
He broke the record.
I think, yeah, he did. So fair play to him in Brazil as well. But I've got to say one thing quickly. I do feel bad for Julio Cesar. He's not had a great tournament in general, but he didn't play awful in that game, considering the fact that he conceded 7.
Yeah.
He was given very little protection.
That, yeah, it's one of those days in the office where the goalkeeper can only do so much.
Yeah, I mean, he possibly could have done. Could have kept out maybe 2 of those, and even then,
Fact remains is they Germany got through to the final where they emerged triumphant, but the other semi-final was a bit of a duller affair. I mean, I have to say that was Argentina-Holland, and they were just so protective of themselves. Nothing quite gelled for either team in that game.
I think it was very much a case of both teams not wanting to lose rather than wanting to win.
To win, yeah. Which is what you get with semi-finals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything in knockout football, really.
Occasionally finals as well. But unfortunately, the final turned out to be a better affair. I think a lot of people were hoping Argentina got through just to see Messi in a final. Personally, I prefer Holland to go through. Although I did have a bit of a problem with, obviously Robin has dived his way to a few free kicks and penalties in this World Cup.
Yeah.
So that was that stuck in the throat a little bit. So I wasn't too devastated that it didn't get through. But I was happy. I was happy to see, considering the fact that Holland had been such an expressive team as well, that first game, look at that. And can we just say as well, we've seen some absolute hammerings of the big boys, which is good to see. But it was really good to see an attacking, well set out team like Holland go far, even if they were a little bit dodgy at times, Robin's antics.
Well, ultimately they didn't quite meet the final. They managed to use every single player in the squad though, which was cool. Throughout the entire tournament. I mean, they took the third place playoff to do that, but still. It was a...
Did they put Vorm in goal?
Vorm came on for like the last 5 minutes of the third place playoff.
Yeah, that makes sense then, because I know that they'd obviously played Tim Krul in that game before, and when he came on to save the penalties. And Silerson had showed himself to be a very good keeper for most of the tournament. And Michel Vorm, people are saying, why does he put Vorm on? He's very good at saving penalties. But yeah, if he came on in the end, then
if Man United play like Holland did it this World Cup next season, then they're going to be a resurgent force. I mean, they've really got a good manager, and then Van Gaal, if the way he's made an international team play, he's got day-to-day management as well. I think they're going to be it's going to be an interesting dynamic over there.
Yeah, well, it can't be much worse than last season. I think the biggest problem with Man United, just as a track side from the World Cup, the biggest problem with United is that they need a major overhaul more than anything else. But we can come on to that more later.
I was going to say, yeah, we've documented well that they've been papering over the cracks a little bit. But we moved back to the final, I should say, because Holland did win the third place playoff in typically triumphant fashion. And the final itself, it took extra time, but Germany managed to become the first European team to win in South America. I mean, that's quite an achievement.
Yeah, I think when you look back at the start of the World Cup, everyone was saying Brazil or Argentina, in large part because of the location of the World Cup. So it's interesting to see that although they both got far, they both came up short in the end.
You were talking a lot about the heat and the time difference and delay and whether the players would adapt. But Germany were the only team to actually custom build their own training facility, and it just shows that the right preparation can overcome obstacles such of that nature.
German efficiency. Yeah, it's all about preparation, really. But, I mean, you've got to say altitude, climate, and things like that do make a huge difference. Look at Bolivia's home record. They barely ever lose at home because they've got the highest stadium in the world, and the ball acts differently. The highest international stadium, I should say. There's probably higher other stadiums, but The ball moves differently. The air is very difficult to breathe. If you're not used to it, if you're not prepared for it, then you'll really struggle. And I think it was the same at this World Cup. If you're not prepared for the heat and humidity, you're really going to struggle with it.
Yeah.
But Germany sorted themselves out, and obviously they reap the benefits.
And the fact that Philip Lahm, their captain, is now retired. I mean, he was retired because he's got from international. He's gone out because he's gone out on a high. But a player as influential as Philip Lahm ultimately won't be that big a loss for Germany, and that just shows how much depth they've got and how scary this team could be.
Yeah, I mean, if you could buy players in international football, England would love to buy a Philip Lahm. I mean, even at the age of 30, how good was he in that World Cup? You know, playing in midfield, playing at fullback. He was
just he's a defensive Adonis.
He is. But also, you wouldn't say he was a star. He was a very good player, but
Yeah.
I think the best thing about that German team, they didn't really have any stars. They had a team of players that are willing to work hard for the team. No one's out to get a goal for themselves. We saw that in the Germany game. It was passing it around, getting the best opportunity, working for each other, and that's how they won. That's how they won it. You know, I think they would have suffered maybe if they'd had, say, a Cristiano Ronaldo in that team, possibly. A bit like Brazil suffered because they were less of a team. They were just Neymar and Thiago Silva at the back.
See, you say Germany didn't have any stars, but you look at the antics of Manuel Neuer. I mean, there is a man that you can build a defence on. His distribution is phenomenal. His sweeping is phenomenal. He's just next level goalkeeping. I mean,
well, definitely keeper of the tournament. And you know,
which is harsh considering harsh on Ochoa, on Howard, and on Navas, Keylor Navas, because those three goalkeepers for lesser teams, some might say, than Germany. Well, undisputably lesser teams, because let's face it, Germany were champions.
Yeah.
They performed miracles. I mean, Tim Howard, he was still on the losing side, but to do 17 saves in a game, in a World Cup game, he's become an internet sensation overnight, and of course Ochoa, same when he kept Brazil at bay.
Yeah.
Keylor Navas, part of the Costa Rican surprise package. So,
yeah, no, those three have had very good tournaments, and they can be very happy with themselves. But I think it's definitely Neuer was on a different level. It's fair to say he didn't single-handedly keep teams at bay, but what he did do was take a lot of pressure off his defence. He was a great goalkeeper, but he also advanced his role as well. He wasn't afraid to come out of the box and tidy stuff up. And when he was called upon to do the basic things, he did them right. It's fine to be like a flashy keeper coming out of your box and making tackles and stuff, but if you can do that, but you can't do the basics, you know, if you can't come out and collect the crosses and narrow down the angles and that kind of stuff, then there's no point. And he did it all very well. So yeah, definitely deserve the Golden Glove.
Oh yeah, certainly. Messi winning Best Player of the tournament, that irked me a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say we should move on to that next because I mean I don't think even Messi himself didn't seem to realise what was going on. I mean, he wasn't happy about it. I think it was just like it should have gone to someone else, maybe from the Holland team or something. I don't know, but they just weren't there, so they just gave it to whoever was at the stadium.
Maradona tweeted that it should have gone to James Rodriguez. I mean,
yeah, possibly.
And you know how Maradona feels about Argentina when he's saying that an Argentinian doesn't deserve an award. He's not doing it out of spite. He's doing it because he genuinely believes there was better. And James Rodriguez, or James Rodriguez, depending on your pronunciation, both are acceptable, I have checked. He was phenomenal. I mean, I've waxed lyrical on the several podcasts about Colombia, but ultimately I was right. They were a very good team.
Yeah, he was top goal scorer. I think he also got a couple of assists as well. And they were very unlucky to go out, really. You've got to say it probably would have been a better World Cup if they'd have gone through.
There's rumours. There's rumours of obviously Muller. There was rumours that Muller was going to go to Real Madrid. There's rumours that James Rodriguez would be joining him, and that just terrifies me to the core of my being.
It is scary, but another thing you've got to realise with Real Madrid is they're a bit like especially Florentino Perez as chairman.
Bless him.
They're a bit, yeah, they're a bit like a child on Football Manager when they've been given, or when they cheat to just, buy all the players for free. They'll pack their forward line with attacking players, but they won't really remember anything else. Like there's talk of Khedira going, and some of the more defensive players. And they're talking about selling and Di Maria as well. I would say like Di Maria is a top quality player, but maybe just because he isn't as spectacular as a Ronaldo or a Gareth Bale, he doesn't get enough credit. But he would be. I can't see any team in the world that wouldn't be improved by Angel Di Maria. He's been effective throughout the league season and even in the Champions League as well.
And the World Cup. He had a great tournament.
Yeah, I think if someone picks him up, say Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, I mean, I can't see. Possibly Barcelona would be the only team that
could refuse him.
Yeah, but I mean, literally every single other team, I can't see why you wouldn't want him.
He is a phenomenal talent, and there's no two ways about it. I mean, the World Cup's just, as I say, it's thrown up some of those that'll be coming to our shores. We've mentioned some goalkeepers already, Ochoa, Navas. They've already been linked with English moves. I mean, Ochoa's a free agent. Navas has a very cheap release clause. So,
is Navas who's currently going to be who's been transferred to Barcelona? I'm sure a goalkeeper at the World Cup's been transferred to Barcelona.
Ter Stegen's gone, and who was the other one?
We'll find it.
We'll find out. Yeah, our goalkeeper, Barcelona, because Barcelona have obviously...
Claudio Bravo, the Chilean keeper. Okay. But yeah, of course, you've got to say what a servant Victor Valdez has been. The amount of years he's been there, patiently. At first he was waiting to get his place in the team. Now over the last few years he's a regular. So you can't really say that. Yeah, you can't have any qualms about him wanting to move on and give himself a different challenge. He could have stayed there and he could have carried on doing what he was doing,
picking up medals.
Yeah, but I think he wants to move on, try and better himself as a player and see the world a bit, which is fine with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, Claudio Bravo was the Chilean goalkeeper who's been transferred. Looks like he'll be second choice behind Ter Stegen. But I mean, he's playing for Barcelona, one of the best teams in the world. So
But Barcelona have also bought Suarez, despite the fact that Suarez had a ban, and I'm fairly sure Barcelona had a ban as well. So
yeah, Suarez is not going to be able to play till the 26th of October.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've already got Neymar, Messi, and
I think they'll struggle through.
Yeah, I mean, when you got Alex Son in midfield, everything else just falls into place.
But you mentioned Barcelona. There's another star that's just left Barcelona, star of the World Cup, Alexis Sanchez, part of the surprisingly good Chile package. I know you were talking a lot about Chile.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. The reason I wanted to talk about Chile as well, before we go into that, is people were bigging up Colombia and Belgium for a while. I mean, fair enough. You did know a bit about Colombia. You were talking. You did have a good reason to be favouriting them. But what annoyed me was that people have been talking about Brazil and Colombia so much for so long, saying they're going to be good at this World Cup, not Brazil, sorry, Belgium, that it got to the point where everyone was expecting them to do well, whereas Chile were a little bit more in the background. They were the slightly darker horses, if you'll have that one. So yeah, it was good to see them do well, because they weren't expected to surprise everyone as much as some of the others. But yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say that obviously with Alexis Sanchez moving to Arsenal, Arsenal are they're sweeping up some of the players that had good tournaments. I mean, Sanchez did have a good tournament. Debuchy for France, he had a great tournament, and he's there now. I mean, they're still linked with Khedira, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, there's another one that had a good tournament. He's got a winner's medal, for God's sakes. What does that tell you?
I know. Debuchy looks like a good player, but I'm not quite sure how good he is. But I don't have too much of a problem with him leaving.
Well, to be
New-
fair, they had to replace the hole left by Sagna, who's now gone to Manchester City, where he'll sit on the bench and gather dust as Pablo Zabaleta conquers all.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he moved, but I don't. He might get rotated, but I don't see him being firm first choice.
Yeah, Zabaleta's a great player. I think we can agree on that. So you're going to struggle to move
I
him.
mean, Argentina were only behind for 8 minutes of the entire tournament, and that was the 8 minutes when they like conceded an extra time. So
I mean, that's tough, isn't it? You can't. It's tough, but at the same time, I don't think anyone outside of Argentina really wanted Argentina to win it. But I mean, overall, they were good. They weren't perhaps. They didn't look like they were gonna. They weren't ripping teams apart,
yeah,
but they managed to find a way through all the way to the end. So
I mean Javier Mascherano for them, he was brilliant. Like
yeah,
like
literally tore himself a new arsehole. You can't.
oh, I
I
shouldn't
think.
laugh. That's it. It sounds horrific. I mean, I'm a pro wrestling fan, and I've heard of that happened to pro wrestlers, and it's just not a nice experience at all. I mean, we all figure that out anyway. Let's face it.
Yeah. You know, I'm surprised you haven't suffered that one yourself once or twice. Um, but yeah, Mascherano had a great tournament, and again, like the Germans, that was a team that was willing to work for each other. A lot of hard-working players. I mean, few players in world football work harder than Zabaleta and Mascherano. I mean, real workhorses, and really help the rest of their more expressive, more attacking players play.
I was going to say more expressive. That's the one.
Mm. There's a
And
lot. There's a lot of talented having the right mentality and having a lot of stamina.
oh, exactly. When the World Cup ends, you start to see things pick up in terms of transfers and players, and obviously now Debussy's moved to Arsenal. That was an example. Tony Cruz, it's Cruz, sorry, not Muller, but Cruz has gone to Real Madrid now.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of questions about him actually because he was a bit of a boy wonder. I think he was 17, 18, 6 years ago, and he was just breaking into the Bayern Munich squad. And people are saying, it's going to be the next big thing. He's going to be the best player we've had in years, and his career stalled a little bit. I think people's expectations were very high, and he's just been rumbling along below that. His career might be about to kick up to the next level. So it'll be interesting to see how he does at Real Madrid. I mean, he's probably not going to get as much game time as he'd like,
No,
but he's going to be playing along some top quality teammates. So
yeah.
as long as he fits in well and gets his head down, he should move on to the next level.
As I say, yeah. So he's moved. Diego Costa and Felipe Luis are now officially Chelsea players.
Hmm.
So you can see that obviously all the like cards are now falling into place. Now that the World Cup's over and all the players are now back with their clubs, they can fill out the paperwork, and now we're going to see a really busy transfer window, I think. I mean, one I didn't know about, but Janmaat, the Dutch right back, he's gone to Newcastle to replace Debussy, so they've done well out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking to our mutual friend, Mr. James Drakeford, about that, and he was quietly confident that he'd do well. He had a bit of a mixed World Cup one, Matt. I mean, he looked pretty good for most of it, but there were one or two games where he looked fairly suspect. But what I would say was Debussy looks like being a very good player. One Matt has got quite a bit of experience already. He should slot in quite well, uh, especially with the international makeup of that squad, because there's a lot of Europeans there. A lot of Frenchmen.
Yeah.
So having a Dutchman slot in shouldn't be too much of a problem. They're a very multinational side, so I think he'll gel quite well in that defence.
So, well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, Newcastle did have to replace their right back, and they've done, as I say, yeah, he did look a little suspect a couple of games, yeah, Matt, but he has done really well, generally for them. I mean, he's third place in the World Cup, for God's sakes. That Holland defence gave the rest of the team the flexibility to, like, play as expressively as they did.
Yeah. Quite often they're playing three centre backs and then two wing backs. I mean, Daley Blind had some great games in the World Cup. So, and they showed good tactical flexibility, which bodes well for Man United. It's Van Gaal willing to experiment and willing to move players around.
We've talked a lot about transfers that have happened. I mean, a couple of updates. Demba Ba's moved to Besiktas, for example.
The
Uh,
big one.
Big one. Well, it leaves Chelsea still a little short striker-wise. That was my point, because Eto's gone.
Yeah,
Um,
but at the same time, I think he needed to go because he wasn't doing his career any favours. He was barely playing. I mean, he scored one or two important goals, but
he scored a hat-trick, one hat-trick, so he did that.
I mean, you talk about Eto or
Oh, Eto, I'm on about his hat-trick against United. I mean, Bar as well, you're right.
yeah,
Bar needed to move on.
both of them definitely needed to move on. Eto was always going to go considering some of the comments he'd made. But yeah, I mean, Eto had actually done better than I was expecting because I did keep an eye on him in Anzi, and he wasn't exactly tearing it up. I think he's got to the point now where his age is catching up with him, whatever his age is. And
Well, he was always one of the players I liked. And this is going to sound sad, but on FIFA, I liked having in
yeah,
your FIFAs. And I've always wanted to see how well he did in the Premier League, and at least now I got to see that.
hmm.
And I mentioned that point because I want to see stars from the World Cup that you think would do well in the Premier League, or you want to see in the Premier League, or you think will be coming to the Premier League. Do you have anyone coming off your brain in that regard?
No, not at all. No. Um, as I said earlier, maybe this is not exactly what you're looking for, but I would say Di Maria to one of the big clubs. But I think what you're talking about in general is maybe slightly more unknown players, maybe some players that might feasibly move to one of the smaller clubs. Penala, I do like the look of him. The although that tattoo he got was a bit, I don't know, the Colombian. Um, the tattoo he got was, I don't know why he did it. Well, I know why he did it, but it was just a bit stupid, like showing him hitting the bar. I would say I love seeing Gonzalo. I know he's not in the Premier League anymore, but Gonzalo Yara, or Hara, I'm not quite sure how you say it. I've seen him play live for Forest. Good to see him playing for Chile. I wouldn't mind seeing him back because he's a very capable fullback or centre back.
Mm.
He'd be a great player. He's basically a bit like a poor man's Pablo Zabaleta. It'd be great for maybe Leicester or someone like that. You know, he's that kind of player.
I'm thinking
Neto,
players like Gary Medel. I mean, he had a great World Cup. I mean, obviously that's proof that that Carlos demise, he was one of the bright sparks of it. I think he tried his heart out.
well, yeah, I think he did for Chile as well. I mean, he was basically filling in at centre back, whereas at Cardiff he was more a defensive midfielder, which is more his natural role. But I think he deserves to be a Premier League player, definitely. What the problem with him, of course, is that he's a combative player and he's probably going to get a few cards here and there.
Oh yeah.
So you can't really. But I mean, as long as you accept that and
It's a
you
bit like
understand.
having a talented Lee Catamol compared to the regular Lee Catamol.
Lee Catamol. Yeah, I mean, I know one or two of our listeners in particular are fans of Lee Catamol, but just quickly, he's not a great player. I mean, he's all right, but if you can't be on the pitch, you can't be a good player. So he needs to calm himself down, for God's sake.
I don't know. It seems to work for Luis Suarez. I mean, look at all the games he missed, and he still managed to get a great transfer.
Yeah, but he's not going to play until October. Until October's nearly gone, actually. So they're going to miss him. And if he honestly, just a quick word about the bite as well. If he does that again, I would love to see what's going to happen to him. Surely it's going to be at least 6 months ban or more.
He's going to get hit one day. I am amazed Chiellini didn't, because Chiellini is a player that likes to throw it into the mixer, and I think it was more the fact that Chiellini was so surprised he'd done it was the reason he didn't punch him.
You don't expect it, do you? Some of the Uruguayan players' behaviour after that was despicable and disgusting. Like you're trying to get in Chiellini's way so he couldn't show the referee the bite mark. And then afterwards as well, the Argentinians saying, "Oh yeah, it's a conspiracy against us," and Suarez was saying, "Why is everyone making such a big deal of it?" Because it's something you shouldn't be doing. It's not like it's like a teenager saying, "Oh, forget about it. That never happened." Ridiculous. And, I mean, that was a bit of an obscure one, but you know what I mean. If
Yeah.
you've ever, it's like a kid who's about to get expelled, trying to make out like it's not a big deal. It was childish and pathetic, and then he eventually did come out and apologise, probably due to pressure from Barcelona.
Well, that's one good thing that's come of this then, if nothing else. That at least they made him, man up and admit what he did.
Yeah, but he should have done it in the first place.
He should have. But if footballers did everything they should do, then the back pages wouldn't get filled nearly as much as they do, ultimately.
Unfortunately so.
And in some cases, the front pages as well. I mean, but hey-ho, such is football, such is life. And, the transfer market it's starting to heat up. I think it's going to get a bit more dynamic. We've mentioned some of the names we think may be on the move. I personally, I think that I think Drogba. He's talked about a couple of moves. So
Back to a Premier League club.
he's talking about a player coach. He said he's had 3 offers and he's weighing them up. So maybe he's just bored out in Turkey. Who knows? But what we do know is the next 6 weeks are going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of weeks, well, since the World Cup's ended, it's been a bit annoying for me because it's that period in between. The World Cup's finished, but the transfer market's not really got going yet. So there's a lot of silly rumours and ridiculous, people talk about ridiculous transfers that are definitely not going to go through.
What's the most ridiculous one you've heard so far?
I think something like Man United bidding like 100 million for Cristiano Ronaldo or something like that.
Oh, you hear that every year though. Oh, he's going back. He's going back. He's bored in Madrid. He's going back.
Yeah, or I don't think he's bored in Madrid. He's just won the Champions League.
Yeah.
And why would he go back to Man United at this moment when probably they're at their lowest ebb? If he goes back, he'll see how Van Gaal does this year.
Yeah.
And then he might make a move. And I think if he does make a move, he's not necessarily going back as well. He can do whatever he wants. He's consistently been one of the world's top 3 footballers for the last 5 years. I think that's fair to say. So he can pretty much go wherever he wants.
So long as he doesn't end up at Manchester City, because that's going to be too annoying. Him and Aguero in the same team would just be that's just not fair.
Well, you say that it's not particularly fair to have him and Bale in the same side. So.
Well, that's the problem with teams with money. You don't really get the all-out level.
No.
Which is why I favour the MLS draft, but that's a story for another day.
It is, but it is a good system.
As I say, we'll talk more about transfer market on our next podcast and more about the start of the season. We'll even do our predictions.
Yeah. I mean, the transfer market silly season is beginning to end, and it's starting getting into the real meat and vegetables of what's happening. So that's good to see.
So I say, in the next podcast we'll be tucking in on the Sunday dinner of transfer talk, so to speak. That's a beautiful analogy right there, Tom.
Yeah, you Yorkshire pudding, you. So that's something to look forward to. So make sure you catch the next one. Yeah.
On that note, this has been Mid-Table Crisis. I have been, will be, and will always be Simon Benjamin Cross.
I've been Tom Patrick, and have yourself a lovely day, Simon.
I will. You too, Thomas. You too. And you too, listeners. Bye-bye.